YouTube, we will upload the talks, and then the links will be available in the websites of the seminar. Okay. So the next talk is by Gabriele Pecucci. The title of the talk is Rhetorical Relations Signed by Mas in Lectures and in Oral Interviews in Brazilian Portuguese. Thank you, Gabriele, for accepting the invitation, and it's with you now.
Thank you, Juliano. Are you hear me?
Yes.
Não estou conseguindo apresentar a janela. Pode ser a tela inteira?
Tudo bem.
Okay. 1 minute, please. Quero. A janela não está indo. Deixa eu fechar você.
Dá licença.
Ok.
Gabi,
Yeah.
you're sharing the wrong screen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gabriele, and the title of my research is Rhetorical
Gabi,
Relations.
Sorry, I think you are sharing the wrong screen.
No.
Peraí, volta. Fecha. Eu vou ir. Now it's okay.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. And now? It's okay?
Okay.
Okay. So, good morning. I'm Gabriele, and the title of my research is Rhetorical Relations Signed by Mas in Lectures and in Oral Interviews in Brazilian Portuguese. This study is the result of my master's, and my research aimed to investigate the use of Mas within the scope of textual organization as a form of sign of coherence relations. And for this, we separated the item according to its roles of conjunction and discourse marker. As a conjunction, it can be used to connect coordinated sentence and also to connect correlative additive constructions. In this context, Mas is used. Oh, Julian.
Eu acho que você está compartilhando a tela do PowerPoint e não a da apresentação. Então não está indo para frente, está parado no mesmo slide.
Mas que coisa, só um pouquinho, por favor.
Deixa lá.
Não está indo para frente.
Eu acho que você pode abrir a apresentação, deixa aberta já no modo de apresentação. Aí quando você clicar em compartilhar a tela, aí você já seleciona a apresentação já aberta.
Perguntas.
Deu certo, Juliano?
Gabi, pode ser assim, só que você vai selecionando do lado esquerdo mesmo, tá? Isso.
Sem abrir a apresentação inteira.
Vai
Tá
assim
bom,
mesmo.
tranquilo.
Tá bom?
Desculpa aí, não sei o que aconteceu, mas...
Sem problema,
Vamos
fica
lá.
tranquilo.
Eu já parei aqui. O objetivo, né? My research aimed to investigate the use of mass within the scope of text organization as a formal sign of coherence relations. And for this, we separated the item according to its rules of conjunction and discourse marker. As a conjunction, it can be used to connect coordinated sentences and also to connect correlative additive constructions. In this context, mass is used in the articulation of sentence. It can also be used in the domain of discourse integration within the class of discourse markers. Sorry, 1 minute, please. It's okay? Juliano, can you hear me?
Sim.
E aí?
Você consegue... você vai lá, por exemplo, em apresentação de slides, apresentar...
Não sei o que está acontecendo, Juliana. A gente fez tudo o que era preciso aqui. Pode deixar pequenininho daquele jeito?
Pode deixar.
É que talvez
os
exemplos
Sim.
fiquem um pouco prejudicados.
Não, sem problema. Vai assim mesmo.
Tá? Vou apresentar assim. Ou você está tentando me ajudar aqui? Vamos, só um minutinho. Fecha aqui.
Dá um zoom.
Opa.
Pergunta se melhorou.
Pode ser assim?
Sim, claro.
Então, vamos lá. Onde que eu parei? Agora eu me perdi aqui. Vamos lá, então. In this context, mass is used in the articulation of sentence. On the other hand, it can also be used in the domain of discourse integration within the class of discourse markers, which comprise several classes of words such as adverbs, pronouns, and conjunctions. My research based on RST, and the relations studied by RST start from the discourse level, and although they not require the presence of formal marks to be established, they can be signed by elements such as mass. We found relations which were proposed by different authors in my research. Some of the relations we found were proposed by Mann and Thompson, and others were proposed by Carson and Marco. Used a corpora of spoken language consisting of 8 lectures and 10 interviews available in the database of the Grupo de Pesquisas Funcionalistas do Norte e Noroeste do Paraná, FUNCPAR. And to survey the occurrence of mass, I used the systemic coder developed by Mickey O'Donnell And this software allows the segmentation of the corpora into text spans to carry out the classification of the relations later, according to the criteria established for the analysis. While working with the corpus, it's possible to include or exclude relations and other analysis parameters according to the analyst's needs. After that, we performed the representation of rhetorical relations through diagrams built with the RST web created by Amir Zeltz. This is a browser-based open source annotation program for text analysis based on the RST. And so after tabulating the data, we found 396 mass, 252 were conjunctions, and 144 were discourse markers. The conjunction mass occurred 168 times in lectures and 84 times in interviews. On the other hand, we found 107 discourse markers in lectures and 37 in interviews. After observing the occurrence, we analyzed each one of them to classify the rhetorical relations and arrived at 109 contrast relations, 134 concession relations, 3 antithesis relations, and 6 correlative addition relations. Here, there is a contrast relation, which is one of the most signed by elements such as but, pero, and mass. This is a multinuclear relation, so there are 2 nucleus, and as it's a contrast relation, the information that is in the nucleus presents a very apparent contrast between them. I already read the example here. Então assim, para eu melhorar meu nível de treinamento, eu vou sempre treinar intensidades maiores. Mas para eu manter estímulo simpático, parece ser nessa direção, ou seja, o exercício moderado, aeróbio, ele é o mais eficiente em metabolizar mesmo gordura, né? So, this example is from a lecture. In the first part of the relation, the teacher is saying that to improve the level of training, it's necessary to train intensely. And the second nucleus, there is contra information with contrast with the first nucleus. The teacher says that to maintain the sympathetic stimulus, you need to moderate exercise. At the beginning of the second part, we can see mass silent, the contrast relation. The second relation which we found was the concession relation. And in fact, this was the most recurrent relation in the corpora. In this relation, there is a nucleus, which is the most central part of the relation, and then comes the concession, which functions as a satellite of the relation. Here's an example. O cara ganha estratosfericamente muito mais do que, de repente, uma pessoa que está exatamente na linha de fronteira para cima. Mas, enquanto a alíquota, ele paga 27,5%. É a mesma alíquota que outro cara vai pagar. This is an economics class, if I'm not wrong. At the nucleus, the teacher says that a man has a high salary, earns more than many people. So we expect him to pay more taxes than others. And in the second part, there is the satellite with the concession signed by mass. And on the satellite, this is a break of expectation, because the teacher says that a person who earns a lot pays the same amount of taxes as other people who earn less. The rhetorical relation signed by mass is the antithesis relation. In this relation, there is a contrast between the two parts, as in the contrast relation, but unlike the contrast relation, the antithesis is a nucleus-satellite relation, in which one of the parts is more predominant. The nucleus of this relation is intended to get the listener's attention. Here is an example of this relation in an interview. Quando você vê que a criança está dando muito problema, você pode olhar como que está a estrutura familiar. A coisa está totalmente esculhambada, né? Culpa da família? Não é isso, não estou querendo dizer que é culpa da família, mas as condições em que aquela família está podendo viver não estão sendo suficientes para garantir uma criança saudável, uma criança com condições emocionais razoáveis, e etc., né? So, the interviewer is talking about adopting children, and he says that the nucleus, that the problem for children is the conditions in which the family is, and not the family itself. And this relation, there is a contrast, but one of the parts has more communicative weight. And the last relation signed by the conjunction mass was the correlative addition relation. In the example, we have a lecture, and in which the teacher is talking. There is a first relation, which is the preparation relation. Lembra daquele gráfico que eu mostrei de colunas fechadas e tal? Then we have a second part. Então, assim, o importante para mim é ter duas coisas. And in this last construction, não só o que eu gasto, mas o quanto eu gasto em termos de gordura efetivamente. There is the correlative addition relation, which establishes an elaboration relation with the second part. As Mann and Thompson's list of relations is not closed, we proposed this relation to meet the specifics of the correlation. We know that in the correlation there is a relation of interdependence in which the first part requires the presence of the second part. So in this relation, there is a satellite with more restricted content and a nucleus with presence of broader content. What about the relation signed by the discourse marker mass? We found 5 relations. 85 same unit, 12 parentheticals, 43 elaboration relations, 1 concession relation, and 3 restatement. The first relation we found was the same unit. This relation was proposed by Carson Markle, and actually it's a multinuclear pseudo relation, as it comprises a single discursive unit, which is discontinued by means of parentheses or a positional clause. In smaller portions of text, the parenthetical segment is the nucleus satellite relation of the same unit's first content. In the text of macrostructure, the same unit established the resumption of non-adjacent subdots, which were interrupted or elaborated during the discursive flow. Here in the example, there is a same unit between the two nucleus and a parenthesis in the middle of them. This parenthesis is the satellite of the first part of the text. So, o leite chegou, estragou, não tem finalidade para fazer queijo, você pode até usar, né? Mas eu não sei, em termos de legislação, eu desconheço, né, até que ponto vai, mas eu acredito que é um desperdício você jogar fora esse leite. Ele deve ser reaproveitado para queijo, agora não para ser consumido como leite mesmo, assim como bebida, né? The parenthetical relation, which appears here, signed by Mas, also appears here. Parentheses are text segments that represent deviations from the discursive topic with comments, additional information. So here we have a parenthetical relation signed by Mas. Again, we have the same unit and a parenthetical relation between the second and the first part of the text. Quando chega no limiar, ele tem uma pequena alteração, vai para 1,5 mais ou menos, tá? E depois ele vem para o limiar de lactato 2, ó, que é aqui em cima, quando ele tem um aumento. Mas aí, isso não nos interessa tanto, a gente só sabe que é o ponto onde PA, isso de um trabalho aeróbio para um trabalho anaeróbio, tá? Então, é a zona de limiar de lactato 2. That's it. And the most productive relation signed by the discourse marker Mas was the elaboration relation. It signed 3 different contests. And the first case, it appeared in the introduction of new subtopics in lectures. It happened 32 times, and in interviews, it happened 11 times, introducing subtopics. Mas also signed the elaboration relation in rhetorical questions, like the one in the example. Here we see one of the lectures where the teacher uses a rhetorical question to get attention, the student's attention, and is initiated by Mas. So, pergunto para vocês, o mundo compra o que do Brasil? Compra soja convencional ou compra soja transgênica? Professor, mas o Brasil produz soja transgênica? Claro, está produzindo e está vendendo. So, the second part of text, started by Mas, works as a satellite and elaborates the information of the first part. Mas also signed the elaboration relation in the dynamics of shifts. Here in this example, there is an interview in which the interviewer starts the discourse shift with Mas. He uses a rhetorical question and elaborates the interviewer's speech. Then the interviewer speaks. Então, enquanto ela é formada pelos ruminantes, essa gordura não traz problema para a gente? And the respondent respond. Não traz problema por quê? Fique bem claro isso. Porque a quantidade é pequena. And here we have another example of the elaboration relation in turn taking. In this interview, the interviewer asks a question and the interviewee answers. Sim, bom, você tinha em mente um público-alvo quando você produziu esse texto, né? E você acha que esse público-alvo foi atingido, que os objetivos foram alcançados com esse texto? Ah, é difícil saber, né? Não tem como avaliar por enquanto, né? One minute. And the respondent's answer, despite being negative, works as a satellite of the question. And there is a solutionhood relation. As the answer is insufficient, the interviewer reiterates the question, elaborating his first question. So we have an elaboration relation between the two questions of the respondent, which is signed by Mas. Mas você, assim, que público-alvo você tinha em mente, assim, exatamente quem seria o seu interlocutor desse texto? Seria, no primeiro plano, o público acadêmico mesmo, né? O pessoal da área de história, da área da política, da área de ciências sociais, né? And in the last part, we have the solution-hood relation again. Mas also signaled a single concession relation as a discourse marker in a lecture. Here's the example. The teacher is telling the story of a needy boy, and she asks, ué, e quem que não é carente? Deixa eu só perguntar, quem que não é carente? And the student takes the turn using mas and answers, mas eu tenho casa, ele não. And then we have a concession relation, because when the student answers, there is a break, the expectation of the teacher's question, who says that everyone is needed. And finally, there is the restatement. Mas silent this relation at the beginning of paraphrase. And paraphrase, the speaker reshapes his speech, synthesizing, in many cases, the initial content. As you can see here in the example, this is a multinuclear relation in which we have a repetition of content. It's a lecture, so in the first nucleus, the teacher says, não são todos os que são essenciais, porque a maioria dos ácidos graxos, eles podem ser sintetizados dentro do nosso organismo, a partir, por exemplo, de carboidratos que você come, né? Então, você pode começar a gerar esse tipo de substância. And in the second nucleus, started by mas, the teacher uses a paraphrase and synthesizes the content of the first nucleus. Mas alguns são essenciais, alguns você só vai conseguir fornecer, você só vai conseguir ter através da alimentação, né? And then we have the restatement. Well, the conclusion of my study, although many studies, Taboada, Gomes Gonzalez, Menon Thompson, indicate that similar conjunctions, such as but in English, pero in Spanish, and mas in Portuguese, frequently signal relations of contrast, concession, and antithesis, it was observed that the discourse marker mas signals other rhetorical relations, such as semi-unit, elaboration, parenthetical, and restatement. Being such, we intend to encourage future research about the discourse markers in the rhetorical structure. Here the reference. And thank you.
Gabriele, thank you very much for your presentation. We have some questions here. So Luisa Prevedel asks if there is a reason for the difference in the number of occurrences between the two corpora in the elaboration relation and the introduction of subtopics.
Yeah. We believe that this difference between corpora happened for a few reasons. First, because lectures are longer than the interviews. The lectures were around 90 minutes, and while interviews were 30 minutes each. Second, the introduction of new subtopics is typically seen in didactic discourse. And lastly, it's common for respondents to answer the interviewer's questions, and which prevents them from introduction new subtopics. So, but as our intention was not to make a contrasting analysis between the two corpora, this amount had no impact for the research, I think.
Okay. Laura Galush has also asked a question. How would you explain the difference between the relations found between the discourse marker and the conjunction?
Well, the conjunction is part of the syntactic structure. So, as mas is typical of adversative clause, I think it's natural for it to signal contrast and concession. And on the other hand, the discourse marker is independent of the sentence structure. Then it signals other relations that do not need formal signals. I think that's it.
Okay. Mas in Portuguese functions as pero in Spanish and as but in English. These three words have different origins, etymologically speaking, but they function in a similar way. Do you have a hypothesis about why that happens?
No, there are studies that show that similarity, but I don't have an hypothesis.
Okay.
I think they.
Okay. One last question. Do you think that this the uses of mas as a discourse marker are more common in spoken language, because you studied spoken language, than in written language?
I think so, Juliano. Eu vou responder em português, aí você dá uma traduzida aí, tá? Por favor.
Okay.
Eu acho que sim. Eu acho que que o marcador discursivo mas, assim como outros marcadores discursivos, é mais comum na língua falada, né? A não ser que seja um texto que simule a língua falada, eu não sei. A gente vê que o mas funciona no texto, quando ele tem uma função parecida, assim, como marcador discursivo, para retomar algumas unidades discursivas, mas eu acho que, como marcador discursivo mesmo, ele é mais produtivo na língua falada, né? Parece que sim. Assim como o então, o agora, que a gente vê funcionando como marcadores para sinalizar aí relações de coerência também da RST, né? Ou em outros contextos que sejam fora de análise da RST, mas eu acho que sim.
Okay, so thank you very much, Gabi, for your presentation, for the questions you answered. So she says that the uses of mas as a discourse marker are really much more common in spoken language than in written language.
Thank you, Juliano.
Thanks. Oh, I think we can move on to the next presentation.
Sure. Next be your presentation, Juliano. Juliano? Next be your presentation or mine? I think we have two presentations.
Yeah, I think it's mine and then yours.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying to share my screen.
Yeah. So next work will be presented by Giuliano Desiderato Antonio, and the title of this work is Rhetorical Relations of the Central Argument in the Results and Discussion section of Scientific Papers. So over to you, Juliano.
Well, this is a new project that I'm working on, and the justification for the research is that the amount of published scientific papers is increasing a lot. It's increasing exponentially. Scientific publications are long and complex documents because they require not only mastery of writing, but specific knowledge of the genres of the academic domain. So it's important to carry out investigations which deal with the scientific paper, aiming not only at its description, but also at providing resources for the teaching of academic writing and also for the development of automatic applications. So the main goal of this paper is to investigate the rhetorical relations held between the arguments in the results and discussion sections of scientific papers from two different areas of knowledge. Another aim is to identify linguistic signals or linguistic cues, such as modality, verb mode, stylistic resources, discourse markers, that signal the functions of the arguments and specific rhetorical relations. The corpus is formed by 10 papers from the areas of, actually I'm saying areas, but the term that is used is colleges. I'm using the terminology of CAPES, the Brazilian Agency of Post-Graduation and Research. So I think it would be better to use the term colleges. So there are 3 colleges: sciences of life, exact and technological sciences, and human sciences. So, but from the 3 colleges, we're going to study, we have studied in this paper only 2, sciences of life and exact and technological sciences. Inside the colleges, we have subdivisions in areas, okay? In another paper, we're going to talk about, in the future, about the human sciences, because there are some specific specific types of organizations in human sciences. So why to study the results and discussion section? So according to Basserman, who has been studying academic papers, the results and discussion section is the central part of the scientific paper. So the methodology, so how we have conducted the study, the results and discussion section of the 10 papers has been segmented into paragraphs. So why have we segmented them into paragraphs? Because according to Garcia, the paragraph is a unit of composition formed by one or more sentences in which a central or nuclear idea is developed. Secondary ideas, which relate intimately to the central idea or which arise logically from the central idea, are aggregated to it. McLaughlin and Traynor say that the paragraph is large enough to contain a complete thought process and small enough to allow analysis of the components of that process as they function or contribute to the job of communicating. Tables and figures have also been segmented as they play an important role in the results and discussion section, as we will see in the analysis. So, in the College of Exact and Technological Sciences, these are the relations we found in the results and discussion section. The most frequent relation is preparation, with 28.7% of the occurrences, then interpretation relation with 25.2%, and then joint relation with 15.7%. This is an example of the diagram of the rhetorical relation of texts of the corpus. As it's difficult to see because it's small, I'm going to put it a bit bigger example in the next slide. So as you can see here, tables and figures are the central units or the central arguments of the results and discussion section. As you can see here, we have 3 main main nucleuses in this text. Here we have table 6 in figure 5 in this nuclear part. Here figure 6 in table 7, and here figures 7 in table 8. These figures and tables, they are usually preceded by a preparation satellite in which the authors of the text announce the content of the table or of the figure, and followed by an interpretation satellite. Okay, so this has been very common in all the texts that have been analyzed. So the interpretation relation is always after the table or the figure. According to Mann and Thompson, the reader recognizes that the satellite relates the nucleus to a framework of ideas not involved in the knowledge presented in the nucleus itself. Carlson and Marco also presents a definition of the interpretation relation, and it's more complete, let's say. They say that one side of the relation gives a different perspective on the situation presented in the other side. It is subjective, presenting the personal opinion of the writer or of a third party. An interpretation can be an explanation of what is not immediately plain or explicit, an explanation of actions, events, or statements by pointing out or suggesting inner relationships, motives, or by relating particulars to general principles. And 3, an understanding or appreciation of a situation in light of individual belief, judgment, interest, or circumstance. So the writers usually use the interpretation relation to explain to the readers the content of the tables, the content of the figures. So maybe the content is not plain, it's not clear enough. So it has been very common in the corpus to find after the table after the figure, the interpretation of the contents of the figure and of the table. So the writer wants to make it clear, for the reader what's in the tables, what's in the figures. So what are the signals of the interpretation relations? Passive constructions with evidential verbs, as it can be noticed, or it has been made evident. Here I have translated to English the signals, okay? And other signals are evidential verbs. So evidential verbs and evidential constructions are the most frequent signals of the interpretation relation. Constatou-se que, or in English, one verified that. It is possible to verify that. One observes that. Okay. Verbs of knowledge and belief, which are also evidential too, they can be also categorized as evidential. Acredita-se que, or one believes that. Presentation and characterization verbs, both in active or passive constructions. So presented or presentou, presented, foram identificados, have been identified. Epistemic modal constructions, which are also related semantically to evidential constructions. É fato que, it is fact that. Explanatory sequences, talking about sequences by Adam. So explanatory sequences are also very frequent in interpretation relation. Passive constructions with assessment verbs. So foi determinado, it has been determined. Passive constructions with assessment verbs. So continue. So another example. It has been related. It is expected. So all of these are signals of the interpretation relation. In the Sciences of Life College, the most frequent relation is interpretation. Okay, we have 26% of the occurrences, and the others around 10% or less. Okay, this is an example of the results and discussion section. Okay, of the diagram. It's too small to see in the screen, so I have made a slightly bigger version here. So as you can see, again, graphics, figures, and tables are the central units again. Okay, so the results and discussion section is divided into subsections. In these subsections are connected, related by joint relation. In each of the nucleus, we have a table or a graphic. Okay, so the tables and figures are the central units too. They are usually preceded by a preparation satellite and followed by an interpretation satellite, as it's happened with the exact sciences. Sorry, the sciences of life. So again, evidential verbs are very frequent here, like demonstrated that. This is an example of a sign of a cue for interpretation relation. Evidential postposed past participles can also be used as a sign for interpretation relation. The observed variations. Okay. Explanatory sequences, again, are a signal of the interpretation relation. Existential verbs. So, neste estudo houve, or in this study, there was a positive correlation. Okay. Presentational verbs like present, the results presented. Assessment postposed past participles. So the evaluated matrices or the STRs classified as. Also dependent gerund clauses with mental process verbs like considering are also signs of interpretation relation in Brazilian Portuguese. Okay. Comparative structures like here we have enquanto, while. So it is used to compare results. So comparative structures are very common too in interpretation relation. Epistemic modal adverbs like probably, because the writer is writing a hypothesis about the results. Okay, so that's why we found so many epistemic adverbs, epistemic constructions, right? Epistemic auxiliary modal verbs like verb poder or can, may in English. So the difference may have happened due to, okay. As I said, this paper is only about sciences of life and exact sciences. And this pattern is very common. It seems to be very common in both colleges, in the papers of both colleges. In human sciences, there is a difference, and then we're going to write another paper about it, because many papers have this structure in which you have introduction, methodology, results and discussion, and conclusion. But many papers, I think most of the papers in human sciences have the structure of an essay. So it's a completely different structure. So then we have to dedicate a paper, a study only for that. Okay. So thanks for your attention. If you have any doubts, we can answer now, or you can write to my email. This is my email address. Okay. And now, if there are any questions, I can try to answer them.
Yes, Juliano, we have one question, and I have another question also. Katia Santos is asking that it's nice to see how you solve the problem of tables and figures, but considering them unit as well. And she's asking if you know more works about this topic, and if you could say something about these works.
Katja, thank you for the question. Yes, there are some other. I know another paper about this. I will put the link here in a few minutes. I think that Maite Taboada has a paper about that, about this multimodal texts, and I'll put the link here in a few minutes. Okay. I don't think there's another way to solve this. I think that the figures and tables have to be units too, because they are, I think they are the central parts of the results and discussion, because you have to present the results, the figures, the numbers, and then you interpret them as a writer, you interpret them for the readers. I don't know, I think it's plausible, okay? I'm not saying that this must be the correct structure, but I think it's plausible. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah. For example, it's for discussion. For example, I think it's a very interesting topic, but taking into account the satellite and nucleus function, if we delete, for example, figures and tables, we get a coherent text. It's something like, if it's the central unit, the table, but if we delete the table, we still have in the scientific papers a coherent description of the results. That's a problem that I see, for example, with this proposal, and it's a very interesting problem, because my consideration is regarding the nature of the relations. It's figure and text have the same relations. The nature is the same relations, are paratactic, hypotactic, and intersentential, intrasentential relations, paragraph relations. I think maybe it's another kind of relation. The nature of these relations, it's different, but it's good that see that RST can talk about this and discuss about this. That's my consideration. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Mikko. It's I think you have to think a lot about what you said now. To make me think. However, if we remove the figures and tables, we don't exactly have the results, because in the interpretation relation, the writer does not usually put all the information which are in the tables. At least in the papers I analyzed, they highlight some aspects that they consider more important. So all the information won't be in the interpretation relation. So I don't know how to solve this. If you remove the interpretation satellites, for example, you have the results there, but they are not explained. They are not plain. Let's say you have to understand. There won't be an interpretation. You have to interpret them yourself. So I don't know. I have to think a little bit more about this.
More questions, comments? No. should we follow with the next presentation?
Okay. So now we have the last presentation of the symposium. The title is Assessment and Analysis Methods for the Self-Study of the Rhetorical Structure in Text Summarization, to be presented by Miquel Ilusquieta, Unai Atucha, and Alejandro Molina Villegas. So we thank you in advance for the presentation, for having accepted the challenge to present the paper here.
Thank you to you. And let me know if it's everything correct. You can see my screen, my presentation.
Yes, it's okay.
Oh, thank you very much. So it's a pleasure to explain you an ongoing project. We are doing Alejandro Molina here in the middle of the picture from Mexico, from the Centro de Investigación en Ciencias de Información Geoespacial, and Unai Atucha. I think he's listening also this talk. And we are collaborating together. I think that the last 6 years we are working together, and I think you can see that we don't work only. We take some time for pleasure and know places, interesting places and stuff. So I'm Miquel Ilusquieta, and me and Unai, we are from the ITS Center. And the ISA group, that it's these both groups are from the University of the Basque Country. Okay, and I'm going to present you the work we are doing with summarization in a real scenario with university students. So briefly, I'm going to present the aims of this study, the approach, the method, results, and some conclusions. So RHYME is to give an automatic feedback in summarization tasks. We developed this study in a real scenario in the university with more than 100 students, and we performed 2 different evaluations. An intrinsic evaluation is to analyze the improvements that these students did in their summaries, and a strict evaluation that is the collect and user satisfaction data. This study was performed in Basque, but we can do in other languages. I think that we do a little another study in English also. And the approach we employed here is that we employ discourse information, discourse structure information, and we use also Moodle, the LMS environment, in order to collect the feedbacks and do this experiment. Okay. Before to start with presenting the work, let me define what is summarization. Summarization is the act of expressing the most important facts or ideas about something or someone in a short and clear form, or a text in which these facts or ideas are expressed. We have also below the definition for automatic summarization, that is to extract content and present this content in the most important, in a useful way to users and applications or machines needs. So the approach for this study, it's we analyze coherent relations. I think that you know very well now the Rhetorical Structure Theory proposed by Mann and Thompson there. Some years later, Radev proposed another similar theory, that is cross-document structure theory. That's similar to RST, but in this case, these relations could describe different relations in different documents. RST is for a single document, whereas FST is for various documents and describe coherent relations in various documents. As you can see in the picture here in this figure, we can see different approaches and different boundaries. Upper boundary that relates more with genre, discourse, text types, and lower boundary with is more related to lexicogrammar, syntax and lexical realizations. Another well-known discourse approach is PDTB, Pen Discourse Tree approach. That, as you can see, this approach is very based on lexicogrammar at the bottom of the lower boundary. That means that they don't grasp all the structure of the text. So we can see a gap at the top of this diagram. And finally, we have another known theory, SDRT, that is segmented discourse representation theory. It's more, it's a theory described for logic, and this theory, it's also has some similarities with RST's, has hierarchical structure and grasp, as you can see in this schema, all the from the lexicogrammar point of view to the text, to the upper boundary, to text and genre features. So our approach is this one. As you can see, we don't down at the bottom of the of this picture, but we are at the top of the picture. So we are trying to get the macro structure of different texts. So we are trying to analyze rhetorical relations, and in the following slides, I am going to show you what is the relation in our study with RST and CST. So let's go to an example. That here we have a real text. It's an abstract. It's an abstract from the medical domain, and we have here the text on the left and the RST interpretation on the right. So as you can see, first of all, we segment the text in EDUs in the typical way that proposed Mann and Thompson, and after that we detect the central unit, that is the most important idea, EDU, elementary discourse unit of the text, that is that if you read this paper analyze, and it's the root, the main topic of the paper. And on the left we have the preparation, this is the title, and some background information and some elaboration of the information about the topic that they are studying here. So if we delete the satellites of this tree that you see that in red here, EDU1, EDU3, EDU5, 6, sorry. If we delete these three satellites, we have still a coherent interpretation of the text. It's like a summary. Okay, this is a very important function of satellites and nucleus, and this is how we can summarize texts based if we based in discourse information. So here we have the explanation of this in text, and I want to underline that if we only collect the satellites of this text, we get a no coherent summary of the text. So we couldn't understand this very well, and we have not the most important ideas of the text here. So with a very simple basic heuristics based on nuclearity and RST, we can get different summaries of the same tests. For example, sample 10 is the longest summary. With 4 EDUs. Example 11 is a shorter one with 2 EDUs, and example 12 is the last example. It's the most compressed summary of this text. So it's the central unit of the text. So once we decide which EDU are the most important EDUs of the text, we can we can correct grammar or correct some cohesion inconsistencies in the text, because as we deleted some parts, the link of this text are not do not fit very well. So in an abstract summary, students will correct and will put with their works, with the words, a better summary. So, okay. So what we have done in this study, we collect 4 real texts from textbooks, from scholar texts, on the same topic. Geological formation is the topic, and we collapse these 4 different scholar texts in a unique text. We include a small introductory text, and we get a unique text with different text inside. So after this, we segmented this text with ADUs. We annotate the central unit of the most important ideas of the text, and also we create the RST trees, and we annotate coherent relations. And all these informations was included in our system. This is our system. It's called Compress EUS. It's a tool that helps to summarize text. And here, this tool was developed for Basque, but we have different versions for English, Spanish, and if you want to test, you can try the English one in this URL, in this link. Okay, so this is this web-based service. It's based in RST and has different information, as I said before: EDUs, central unit, and rhetorical structure. So you need to sign up, but after that you can use this tool. And this is what you will see when you go into the system. You will see the geologic and morphologic geomorphic agent. This is the original text. This text is cemented in EDUs. And as you can see, you can click in here in different places, and you start deleting here. You see, you can see that I deleted some EDUs. So the student have to click in secondary ideas and get the most important or the compressed text, the extracted summary. This means that we are not editing anything. We click in another button, and we start after we decide the core of this text. We start with the abstract summary here, editing grammar or writing discourse markers or whatever you want. And these systems could understand rhetorical structure theory. So we know when you are deleting one EDU, we know what EDU you are deleting, in which position is that EDU, and what are you doing. So we get the student get a code at the end of his work or her work, and he has a code with different information: the extracted summary, the abstract summary here in the middle, and a code with the some operations, with the operations that she or he did, and which EDU maintained, which EDU deleted, was deleted, and if the central unit was deleted, the main idea were deleted, which paragraph, which subparagraph, we can know this all information. This is the spreadsheet for teachers, and teachers see more similar most of this information, but also in which here you can see the text, and if information of the text, and if the student deleted or not. This is one student, but here we have different codes for all of the students. So the teacher could see what is the student doing. And And to understand this code that you get from Compresseus, we create an Excel spreadsheet, and when you can copy this code here and get some numbers and get some feedback. Why? Because you can understand very well what are you doing, because you have here with different colors if this idea it's important or it's relevant or it's not relevant. You have here the numbers and the importance of these ideas. If the idea is lower, the number is lower, the idea is more important. If the number is higher, the idea is secondary. So here the students have an adaptive feedback Google spreadsheet that you can play with that and understand the structure of the text. So here I'm not going to explain this very well, but if you want, I can come here in the question time. Here we compute in different ways the levels of these ideas. For example, going through the central unit, if we go to the different ideas, if we pass one relation, we give +1, and it's more it's not so close, this idea, so we can get the structure of the test and the complexity of the text here. Okay, the teacher can set up the maximum and the minimum length of the summaries. We can adapt this sheet, Google Sheet, and a student could have the results. They have the number here, a number here, and here they can see what they did. For example, this student, for example, deleted some ideas here at the level 2, the level 3, but maintained most of the ideas, the core of the text, and deleted ideas from level 8, 9, 10, 11. So how this student could improve his or her abstract or summary, deleting these ideas from level 8 and above. So with this information, we were interested to do this in a real scenario with real students and on the fly with them, analyzing with them the results in the school, in the class. So we get 129 bachelor students from grade 2, and we use these two tools, Compresseus and Moodle Workshop, to give them peer evaluation also. Not only automatic evaluation, but we were interested also in the peer evaluation also. So this experiment we manage in 2 stages. In the first stage, we ask them to make a summary without saying them anything, and we give them the automatic Google Sheet, this automatic feedback. And we propose them to do some self-calibration exercise in order to see if they are answering in a good way, or if they were clicking in everywhere with no sense. So in the second stage, we ask them to revisit the first summary and improve it, and we give place for peer evaluation. Colleagues, other students give in the same moment, after do this summary, some evaluation, some feedback, and also they fulfill an user satisfaction questionnaire. So, and here at the top, you can see the general results that most of the students improve the results. The group of students improve the results in long test and also in a short test in the same way. And we also measure hierarchy, coherence and cohesion, syntax and adequacy and complexity, and we get that the system of this task was interesting in 3 of them, but not in coherence and cohesion. And so here we have a negative result, but because we think that the summaries were has lower coherence and cohesion, so we have to analyze this more in depth. Why did this happen? So we also ask them to fulfill some user satisfaction questionnaire with different questions, and we ask for what criteria was the most easier to evaluate, summaries, and they ask cohesion and coherence. That it seems interesting because we detect that this was the most problematic thing to evaluate, but they think that it was the easiest. And we get, for example, other information that syntax was very difficult to evaluate because they were summarizing texts and not creating texts. And hierarchy also was very difficult among other phenomena. And we also asked them if it was helpful, the feedback provided automatically in order to evaluate the class their colleagues. And they think that it was very helpful and some students don't find this helpful. And we also ask if this helped more for, what helped more, if peer evaluation helped more or automatic evaluation helped more. And most of them say that both were similar, which is, I think, interesting. But some of them told us that automatic evaluation was more interesting than peer evaluation. So these are our results. And to finish with this talk, we have here the conclusions. We designed a method to get the automatic feedback based on RST. The information now that we are employing is based on EDUs and central units, but in the future we want to use also rhetorical relation information, coherence information. We tested this tool and this method in a real scenario with 129 students, only 2 teachers, Unai and me. So I think it's factible. We can employ this. We made 2 different evaluations, intrinsic evaluation to show, and we analyzed that summaries were improved in the second stage. We also made an extrinsic evaluation that we showed that user satisfaction questionnaire results were satisfactory. And finally, we want to include all the components that we develop in Moodle, in Google Spreadsheet, in the same web service, in Compreseus, in order to give tools to teachers to work with summaries in schools. Because I'm not sure in Brazil what is happening, but in the Basque Country, teachers don't work with summaries. So these are the references. And we are always open for collaboration, also in other languages. So please write us or write me, and we can discuss about this. Thank you very much for listening. And I am open for questions, comments, or whatever you want.
Thank you very much, Miko. It's very interesting. I think it's a great tool here. Teachers work with summarization in schools. It's very common, especially in second grade schools. And in the vestibular of UEM, we have already worked with argumentative answer, but the summarization is another genre that is asked in the vestibular. So maybe you could do something about that. Iria asks here, she said it's a very interesting approach and the tool is very useful. Congratulations. What would you need to adapt it to other languages?
Nothing. nothing. We don't need nothing. This is a very, we need text and an analysis with RST. We only need that. We don't need anything more. It's a very simple tool if you have a good RST analysis, and Unai also worked, we are also considering new approaches that are not do not consider RST in a very strict sense. That's more intuitive approach, and we don't need anything. We need only teacher summaries and teacher collaboration and nothing more. It's very useful to adapt languages. You need to know the language. I cannot work this. I cannot implement this for Portuguese, but I think that Juliano will find to adapt this very easily. Yeah, we don't need anything. I think we have anything. Only RST analysis and yeah, and text. Yeah.
There's another question here. Fernando Soares asks. He said that it's indeed an interesting tool. He asks if you think it would be useful for analyzing discourse topics as well.
In which sense, analyzing discourse topic? I don't get the point.
Maybe extracting discourse topics?
Yeah, but yeah, we have other tools that I collaborate with Juliano. You remember that we have tools to detect the central unit, but I think that tools are more easy. And we develop for Spanish, Basque, and Portuguese these tools. So yeah, if that is the question, I think that we have another tool that is, I can send you the tool. That is, I think this is for working with the students' coherence relations. Yeah, not only to extract the main idea. I'm not sure if that is the question.
Fernando, would you like to ask the question? If you want to open your microphone and ask the question in the camera, it's being recorded if you don't mind. Okay.
Okay. I will send you the links. So let me 1 second.
Okay.
We develop different tools for Basque. For example, here I will send you a tool that Juliano and me developed for Brazilian Portuguese. And this is the central unit detector for Brazilian Portuguese. And if you go there, and I think this is the vestibular, the text from vestibular. Yes. And this is only for that. If you segment EDUs in lines, the system will detect the central unit, the topic. I am not sure if you are talking about that, but I think that that's the tool. And I can send you also the reference. I think the paper is there also. No, I should put there the paper. So sorry for that, but yeah. Yep.
Just a comment. That this detector, it works only for the topic that is there. Okay.
Yeah, it's only that topic because we only analyze that topic, and yeah, but I think we can do with other topics or yeah.
Any more questions? Any other questions? I don't think so. Oh, Miko, thank you very much for your presentation. Congratulations for the application that you and Unai and Alejandro Molina Villegas developed. I think it's a great help for teachers. So I think we can thank everybody for watching, for attending the seminar, the symposium. Thank the presenters, yeah, for sharing the results with us, sharing the knowledge, and say that it was a pleasure to work with you, with all of you today. We have, I think that because of the pandemics, we have been using communication technologies, remote communication technologies more often. And this is, I think this is the only good part. The rest, no. Mika, would you like to say something too? You know, Ilya, Gabriele?
It's a very nice pleasure to be with you and share our works and your ideas. It's very hopeful that how Gabriele is starting with this very exciting topic, and I hope you will have a very long way in the near future. So congratulations to everybody, and yeah, it has been a pleasure, and I think there is room for collaboration, and we could find very interesting topics to collaborate and following with these talks or whatever you want. So we are open to, if you want something, just write an email and we follow discussing or talking.
And thanks for the organization, Giuliano and Mikel. Thanks. It has been a pleasure.
Thanks to you for participating.
Thank you, Ilya. Thank you, Gabriele. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. Okay, well,